everyone. Welcome to today's National Geographic Explorer Classroom. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. For those who haven't been following along, we've been celebrating big cats for the last couple of weeks. Big Cat Week is an extension of the Big Cats Initiative, which supports scientists and conservationists working to save big cats in the wild. So today, very excited to be joined by Luke Dollar. He's a wildlife biologist, coordinating conservation research and developing programs throughout Madagascar. He spent more than 8 years in the field, focusing his research on carnivores, specifically the fossa. A large number of his efforts are concentrated on education as well as sustainable employment programs for the rural population. His efforts have not only yielded a ton of data on fossa biology and behavior, but also established really important scholastic and sustainable business programs that have benefited thousands of people in Madagascar. So Luke, it's absolutely a pleasure to have you joining us during our Big Cat celebration.
Hi, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here. And hi, everyone in the classrooms and everybody watching along on the live feed. It's great to see you guys. For the last almost 25 years, I've been working on carnivores and their conservation in Madagascar and in Africa. And the work that I've done with the Fossa that Joe was telling you about gave me a lot of insights on how to protect carnivores, whether they be Fossa or big cats, all over the planet. And so I'm going to, for the next few minutes, introduce myself and show you a few videos and talk about how our work in Madagascar with the Fossa connects to conservation work with big cats all over the world. So before we go any further, I'm going to do a screen share and start off on a video that introduces you to our work in Madagascar.
I'm Luke Dollar. For about 17 years, I've been coming to Madagascar, a country biologists like myself like to think of as a petri dish of evolutionary history. It's so unique that 4 out of 5 organisms you find here, you won't find anywhere else. One of the most elusive is the Fossa, which I study. Fossa in what? What's the number? Fossa in?
Fossa in G6, JBA G6.
Okay, got it. I didn't come to Madagascar to study the Fossa. I came for the reason that most people come to Madagascar, the lemurs. Lemurs are the famous icons of this island. And I was studying a particular lemur, and then this lemur ups and disappears. Turns out that this lemur had been eaten by this predator I'd never heard of before, the Fossa. I think it's a female. Fossa is the largest carnivore on Madagascar. It's the top predator. It's the natural king of the jungle. What I'm going to be aiming for is the fleshy part of its thigh.
Can you click on the video again? It switched to the Hangout screen. Oh, there we go.
Right now, we wait for about 60 seconds. If I had to imagine what the common ancestor between the mongooses, the cats, and the hyenas looked like way back when, I imagine it would look a lot like a Fossa. She scratched up her face a little bit, but it's just light abrasions. Throughout the island, I estimate that there's definitely fewer than 3,000 Fossa left in the wild. And so I spend half, probably more, of my time working on the conservation of the species, because not doing so would guarantee that by the end of my career, I'm going to have a whole trove of information about a recently extinct species. Madagascar is in a conservation conundrum. It's between human survival and the preservation of natural resources, and we're trying to strike a balance between those things so that both the forests and the wildlife, as well as the human communities, can coexist sustainably for the indefinite future. Madagascar is famous for its lemurs, but it's also pretty famous for its chameleons. You'll notice this guy's eyes, they move independently. There's a lot of folklore that comes from the fact that a chameleon can look forwards and backwards at the same time. that make them pretty special animals to the local people as well. We're going to save this guy from being roadkill and drop him off over where he was headed anyway. That was our good deed for the morning. Everybody around me you see here, by and large, is a subsistence farmer. They need water in order to grow crops. If they don't grow crops, they don't eat. The forests are the key. They're the sponge to the water. Without the forest, the watershed, and the water that slowly irrigates the fields even during the dry season, there is no rice. If there's no rice, there's no food. If there's no food, there's no survival. Hyacinths are choking off that vital water supply at Lake Ravilobe in Nkarafonska National Park. 2 years ago, this lake was completely open. There were no hyacinths on this lake. Last year when we got here, we were shocked to see all of this. This hyacinth is not a natural species to this lake. This is an invasive plant. We're taking a pretty simple brute force approach to the issue. We're pulling them out. Truly mammoth job, just an enormous job. But that's what's necessary to take this lake back to its natural state. So that's what we're doing. We probably won't get every hyacinth plant on the lake, but if we can bring them to a controllable number, then we've succeeded. But there is one good thing. This cow is loving this hyacinth. It's succulent. It's great to eat, and he wants to keep it. He thought it was worth defending. That means that this is worth something to him. When I come back here next year, there'll probably be another new project dealing with another issue of conservation in Madagascar. With each individual project, it's all about the same thing, and that's keeping what's here, here. Animals, plants, people. If we lose any part of it, we're going to lose all of it. We can't let that happen.
All right, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, that played through great, Luke.
Awesome. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about our work in Madagascar and then talk about the Big Cats Initiative, because this is Big Cats Week. So when I was a kid in school, National Geographic had an issue of the magazine that had this lemur that you see here on the left-hand side of your screen, the Indri, and it was on the cover. And I saw a video where I heard the Indri going, ooh, ooh, which is the call that the Indri make. And from the time I was a kid in a classroom, just like you guys, I knew that I wanted to go to Madagascar and learn about the lemurs. But as you heard from that video, when I finally got to Madagascar, the lemur I was studying was eaten by this predator called the Fossa. And I realized no one knew anything about it. And so 23 years ago, I changed from studying primates to studying carnivores. And I quickly learned that we had to work on their protection. Now, the lemurs in Madagascar are pretty awesome. You've got the ring-tailed lemur like King Julian that you see here. The fat-tailed dwarf lemur. This is a little lemur that stores fat in its tail and hibernates like a bear, but this is a primate. You've got sifaka, like Zabumafu. If you guys have seen Zabumafu, this animal that you see here right in the middle is actually the animal that was appearing on Zabumafu, and that's actually him. That's him right there. Mouse lemurs on Madagascar, the world's smallest primate. They weigh as much as 60 paper clips do. They're that small. And here you see Shaq holding a mouse lemur, so you can realize just how small they are. Madagascar's animals are incredibly diverse and unique. And we've lost a lot of them already from habitat loss. So the messages of the importance of conservation, excuse me, conservation to protect wildlife and their habitats is really important, because no one has ever seen these animals alive because they're now extinct, but they've gone extinct in just the last 1,000 years. In Madagascar now, there's this animal called the Ai. It looks kind of like the rock and roll star Bob Dylan. But the eye does a unique thing. It taps along wood like this, and it digs into trees, and it eats grubs. And the reason that a primate, this lemur called the eye does that on Madagascar is because Madagascar doesn't have any woodpeckers on it. So it's a primate that actually does that. It's so unique and so different a place that everything has a sometimes different role. And that was one of the things that drew me to it initially. And now I take students. You can see my son Zach here with us. This is this past summer. This is last July of me and some of my college students and my son and some of our partners in Madagascar all together, meeting the lemurs just like I did 23, 25 years ago, studying them, but also working to conserve the fossa. This is something that we use to help people understand why the fossa, this top predator, this lion of Madagascar, is important. And that's what it says is most of the people in Madagascar are subsistence farmers, and they have problems with pest species like rats and pigs. And fossa keep those populations low, so they help people, and that's what this poster says. This is the first ever conservation tool that we used in Madagascar to help people protect the fossa. Because if you see one in a picture just like this, it's kind of scary. And people were afraid of it before they started learning more about it. And one of the things we do is we help them to understand that the role of these top predators like fossa in Madagascar, or lions and leopards and cheetah in Africa, or wolves and bears in North America, all play to help keep the entire ecosystem in a good balance. And we have entire teams of people that come out and help us to do this work. Because catching a fossa is a pretty hard thing. This is what our team looks like in Madagascar from this past year. And we have kids that come out with us from the families of our team members. And you see them all here. I'm taking the picture, so you can't see me in this one. And we have a really good time, but we're also working very hard when we're going through the forests. Our trap lines that we're trying to trap fossa on are 20 miles long. And we have to walk these twice a day. So we have a big team of people that's walking twice a day. And what we're doing is we're looking for a fossa in a trap, and when we get one, just like you saw in the video, they'll get on the satellite phone or the two-way walkie-talkies, and they'll call us, and the project veterinarian and I will go and we'll dart the fossa, we'll bring it back to a central processing area, and that's where we weigh it, and we measure it until it wakes up from the medicines that we've given it so it can be asleep, so we can collect data on their anatomy, making sure they're healthy, monitoring, putting radio collars and ear tags on them. And then when we finish, we'll release the fossa right at the place where we trapped it. And then they have these radio collars. And it used to be that we had to chase the fossa with the radio collar to know wherever they go. But now we have these collars that have GPS technology. And so they send us via satellite text messages of where they are. So we don't have to chase them throughout the forest like this anymore. The fossa, actually with their collars, send us text messages so we can understand how big their ranges are, to know how much habitat they need, to know exactly where they are at any given time, so we can help warn people if they're worried about a fossa coming and stealing their chickens, for example. We can warn them where the fossa are so that they can be extra vigilant to run the fossa off. And we're collecting data on everything that's in the forest as well, because we want to make sure that all of the populations are healthy. Sometimes the fossa make that job harder. This fossa is eating one of the camera traps that we use to help study the areas. But the camera traps that we use show us really important things. We deploy them all over the fossa habitat, and we can actually find more about their behavior this way, because this is an animal that doesn't let us follow it and watch it. We have to study it from afar. And these cameras help us. This is a mother fossa with 2 young ones. To learn how long the young stay with their moms. In this case, those young are about 1 year old, and about 6 months after that, they'll leave mom and they'll strike out on their own. We also use the camera traps to help us find out more information. This animal here is called a feline. This is one of the rarest carnivores on the planet. It's in the top 3 most endangered carnivores of the small carnivores on the planet right now, and we know nothing about it. I've been working in this forest for 20 years, and we have 2 pictures of it. These are the 2 pictures that we got. And so this year we're going to start doing more work. We also find out when people are using the forest when they aren't supposed to. And we also use that information to work with local communities, because people in Madagascar are hungry. Madagascar is the world's 4th largest island, and people there grow rice to survive. The average annual income in Madagascar, so the amount of money that somebody makes in a whole year in Madagascar, is only about $300. Most of the people that live there, and there's 24 million people that live on Madagascar, grow rice in order to survive, and that's their whole lives that they do. And so when they cut down more forests for more rice fields, and the rains come and they wash away the soils, they have to cut down more and more forests. But soon they're going to run out. So we have to find other ways to work with them to make sure that the natural habitats in the forests stay intact, because without the forests, they don't have the water that they need to survive. So one of the things we do with local people is help them take advantage of all these folks from all over the world that want to come to Madagascar and see lemurs and birds and fossa and things like that. And so we help people in local villages build campsites for tourists to come, for researchers to come. This is my tent. I've got solar panels there, and the local village groups will cook food and they'll sell it to us. And they'll use the profits from that to put wells in their village. They don't have electricity and running water. So the ability to have enough money to put a well in your village is a real privilege for the people there. And we work with them to find ways that they can make money so that they can have money to not cut down forests more to grow more rice, but they can purchase it, and they can purchase materials for their roofs that they don't have to cut down every year. These are called rocket stoves. About 99%, almost every meal in Madagascar is cooked over an open fire. And these stoves were designed by one of my Madagascar graduate students. And they cut the amount of wood that's required to cook a meal and the amount of time that's required to cook a meal in half. And so while I'm there trying to study fossa, I'm also thinking about ways that we can help conserve their habitat. And if people are going to cut down trees for cooking fires, well, if we have these stoves, they have to use less than half the amount of wood than they would otherwise. You saw the hyacinths in the videos. This same student that's working with the Rocket Stoves project found a way to make these hyacinths into charcoal. If we make the charcoal out of these hyacinths, which is an invasive plant species, it's a plant that's not supposed to be there, then they don't have to cut down wood to cook their meals. And so that's a way we're finding solutions. And people sometimes don't take care of their dogs and cats, and they go into the forests. And these cats that aren't supposed to be there will take things like snakes and lemurs when they're not supposed to be there. And so we work with people to help them spay and neuter their animals. These are all veterinarians on our project that go to help keep these populations of invasive species low. And the vets also, when we have injured wildlife, like this mouse lemur that you see here, will nurse them back to health and re-release them back in the wild, like you see in this picture right here. We work with local people to find better ways to stay safe for themselves and to keep the wildlife safe. There's a road that goes through the national park where we work. And this picture right here is from Florida. Did you guys know that more Florida panthers have been killed in South Florida this year than even existed in all of South Florida 30 years ago? Well, the story's the same for fossa in Madagascar. I've had 2 fossa hit by cars on this road that goes through the national park where we work. And so we work to find a way to slow people down, because in Madagascar, it's a very poor country. They don't have police cars or speed limits or radar guns or speeding tickets. And so we work with the Park Service to put in these speed bumps, and they cut the amount of roadkill by 90% where we had these speed bumps put in. So we're working to do that more to keep the animals safe. Also, people are afraid, and they don't like fossa sometimes, and they want to kill it because they're afraid they're going to steal their chickens. And this is all they have. This kind of thing is all they have to keep their chickens safe. So we work with them to build better chicken coops, and if they can take better care of their chickens, then they don't want to kill fossa because they're not losing chickens to fossa. So those are things that we're all doing to help keep them safe. And we're working with kids in the local schools, and we take them into the forests where we're working so they can understand more about their ecosystems and they can become better protectors of the systems. And then we help them build schools. In the last 10 years, we've built 38 schools in Madagascar in places where there were no schools, so the kids can have an opportunity to go to school and grow up and get a job and not have to be a rice farmer and cut down more forests in order to make a living. So we're breaking this cycle in all sorts of ways. But all this work that we're doing with local people and communities and finding different kind of fuels for cooking fires all has to do with protecting this animal, the fossa. And it takes a big team of people. And I hope you guys stay in touch, and I hope you guys keep watching National Geographic so you learn. These are some of my college students that go out so that you can also help. And I became a National Geographic explorer in 2007. And in 2009, Nat Geo asked if I would help them develop this thing called the Big Cats Initiative. We had this idea that we wanted to protect wildlife all over the place, but especially big cats like lions, tigers, cheetah, leopards, jaguar, puma, snow leopards. And so they gave me a call in 2009 and said, will you help us put something together? We knew that big cats were in trouble. We didn't know how many lions there were left on Earth 9 years ago, believe it or not. But we did know that we'd lost almost 90% of them. We thought there were 10,000 cheetah left in the wild worldwide. That's only 10,000 cheetah in the wild, all of worldwide. Turns out we were wrong. There's only 7,000 cheetah left in the wild. Did you know that there's only 4,000 tigers left in the world? In the wild, 4,000, that's it. And so Derek and Beverly Joubert from National Geographic convinced National Geographic to do something more about it. And that's where the Big Cats Initiative came from. And we have a very simple mission: to halt the decline of big cats in the wild and restore the ecosystems they inhabit. I'm going to stop and show you another little video right now, and then we'll talk more about the Big Cats Initiative, because this is Big Cats Week, you know.
It's hearing, it's smelling that environment, it's listening for lion roars out in the distance. These are the most iconic animals in Africa, possibly in the world today. And to come face to face with something that changes your life profoundly.
You know, we do need to act now. It requires understanding the habitats, and understanding of the local human populations and communities and how those things influence nature.
What makes National Geographic, and particularly its Big Cats Initiative, unique is that we're funding people who are in the front line of conservation.
This was an amazing new opportunity to bring African conservationists onto a global platform and tell their stories.
By focusing our efforts where people and big cats collide, we can try to find ways to coexist, and that's how we win this battle.
One of the successful stories that I'm working on right now actually relates to the pesticide poisoning of wildlife in Africa. We were able to actually bring this to global attention, and we've been able to have this chemical withdrawn from Eastern Africa.
Conservation has to be very locally driven. In every village we've employed what we call a conflict officer. They are the point person in that village for monitoring all the losses and helping people implement the most relevant solutions for reducing those losses in the future.
Enclose the livestock in a predator-proof boma, which is like a corral or an enclosure. It's really cheap, it's really effective, and it's dropped the mortality rate of lions in the areas where this is being implemented by 2/3 in just the first year that it's been done.
We actually have to do hands-on conservation. So it is important that we take action right now to try and protect areas that could go tomorrow.
Go to causeanuproar.org, learn more, and share that information with all your friends.
Cause an uproar!
And so what we're doing with the Big Cats Initiative is three things. We have a three-pronged strategy: assess, protect, and communicate. Under assessment, well, we can't adequately protect that we don't know. So there's a big scientific initiative behind the Big Cats Initiative, in which we've worked to learn everything we can about lions, cheetah, leopards, and write scientific papers with a group of scientists to share with the world exactly what's going on and how we can address the problems. Under protection, we have a grants program. The Big Cats Initiative grants program has given out more than 105 grants in 27 countries around the world. And we give the money directly to people who are working to protect big cats worldwide. In the last 8 years, Big Cats Initiative grants have led to the prevention of the loss, so the protection or the avoidance of losing more than 2,600 big cats around the world. So there's 2,600 big cats walking around Africa and Asia and South America now, thanks to the work of the Big Cats Initiative grantees who have received this funding, that we would have lost otherwise. And when you think about 2,000 of those were lion deaths that we avoided, that's 10% of the world's lions that we have not lost because of the work that the Big Cats Initiative grantees have been doing. And the third part of the BCI is communicate. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're communicating. We're sharing information with each other. We're learning. We're sharing the word. and we're trying to help each other understand why these cats are more important and understand what we can do to help protect them. I want to show you a video before I come to getting some questions and answers and take off the screen share about the kind of work that one of our grantees is doing in the field. Remember that we've given more than 105 grants in 27 countries. So the work that you're going to see in this next video is just one way that one person in the field and his team are working to avoid the conflict between big cats and people that might lead to people wanting to kill them, and therefore we keep them safe. So here's this last video to share with you.
In the dark, as we're tracking, it's a high-stress situation. There's one large male within a coalition of two that we really wanted to catch up with. So we bring out these speakers. We've got different sounds that will attract lions. I need some of these. Just sitting, waiting. The click of the flashlight, and there they are, both of them, just kind of watching. He's our boy. We need to be well aware of where that second animal is moving and whether he's actually going to be a threat to us.
Everybody, this situation is not the ideal. So you listen to everything I say, and as we work swiftly. Bro, the moment it moves, I need to know. You must be ready to move, get into your vehicle.
Whenever I say run, they have to run very fast.
Take 4 measurements because there's a world record here. We need to wrap up is because if he calls, then he's going to start getting restless because he wants to talk to this guy. And we just need to watch that he doesn't come around just to come and see what we're doing. All right, let's wrap up. Yeah, let's wrap up. Yeah, I'm going to fall back.
He's walking slowly. He's just walking slowly. We're trying to monitor all of these things. You know, make sure that this sleeping male in the darkness is okay. And then just before we took off, his coalition mate came up and joined him on the termite mound. That was the sign that we knew that he was going to be okay.
It's 2:45 in the morning. We're just pumped up that we were able to actually put a collar on these animals. They're probably responsible for quite a bit of the conflict. And ready for bed.
All right, so what you've seen there is an example of what one of the grantees is doing to help protect lions in the field. What the folks on that video were doing was putting a radio collar, a GPS collar, just like the one we talked about with Fossa, onto those lions so they can know where they are and when they're going to come in contact with people that might be afraid of them or want to hurt them to protect their cows, just like Fossa with chickens. They can tell the people they're coming and they can move their livestock away, or if they have to go chase the lions into another area, they can do that. And by working together with scientists and local people and communities, and with classrooms like you, we can all raise the awareness for what the problems and the solutions are so that we can all better protect big cats. Now, the themes of conservation are the same, whether it's Fossa in Madagascar or big cats worldwide. Where there's conflict, there's generally a situation that the animals or the wildlife might lose. And so by finding better ways that we can all get along and coexist, we can all help protect what we see and what we want to keep wild, wild. So with that, I'm going to say thank you and see if you guys have any questions that I can help answer.
All right, Luke, thanks so much. That was great. The work you're doing in Madagascar is obviously incredible and so important. And the Big Cats Initiative as a whole is just incredible program. And it's been quite a privilege to host so many grantees over the last couple of weeks. It's been a lot of fun. All right, so before we meet some of our live classrooms, I just want to give a shout out. Let me see where it is on my page. There they are. Mrs. Wafer's got a group from Laurel Springs Virtual School. outside of Nashville, Tennessee. So there's students joining us from all over the place live on YouTube. So big shout out to you guys, and don't forget to send us in some questions via the YouTube chat sidebar. Let's meet our first classroom though. So we are going to go to, let's go to Bloomingdale, Illinois first. We've got a whole group of classrooms joining us. Let me turn their microphone on. Now it's a big group, so I expect them to be really loud when I turn the microphone on. How you guys doing? Not bad, not bad. You guys have a question for Luke?
Anyone have a question? Sure. Oh, am I taking over? Okay. David, do you have a question? I think you can hear. You can say it loudly. You can come up to the screen. Do you want him to come up? Come here, David. Here, say excuse me. And then.
How many snow leopards have you saved so far?
Good question.
How many?
Good question. So I hear you there. How many snow leopards have we helped save? We have projects in Nepal and in Pakistan and Tajikistan and Kurdistan, 4 of the countries where snow leopards are left. Now, you probably already know that there's only maybe like 6,000 snow leopards left on the planet. So after tigers, they're the second most endangered big cat there are. And one of the things that they're doing to help protect snow leopards is helping people in those countries where snow leopards are protect their livestock, because they're afraid the snow leopards are going to steal their goats or their sheep or something like that. And in those countries where they've been working, they've probably avoided the loss of more than 75 snow leopards by keeping the livestock safe so that people don't lose their livestock and then want to go kill the snow leopard because they're angry. And one of the things that's important is to understand that when you're doing conservation, it's not just always about focusing just on the snow leopard or the tiger or the lion or the leopard itself. It's about understanding what are the problems that have led us to lose so many of them, and work with the local people who, you can't blame somebody for wanting to protect their cow or their sheep or their goat when that's all they've got between them and absolute poverty. And so instead of saying, oh, you bad guy, you went and killed that tiger, or you went and killed that lion, you're a bad guy, I want to punish you for it, to understand why, approach them respectfully and understand what the situation was, and figure out where the problems come from, and then avoid the problems from happening in the first place, like by helping them to better protect their cows or their sheep or their goats or other livestock. We can avoid there being a conflict, and so everyone can coexist, including the wildlife, much better. That was a great question. Thank you for that.
All right, thank you. That was a great question. We're going to go to, let's go to Anaheim, California now. Grade 3 students. With Mrs. Radovich. Let me turn your microphone on. And there's not as many of you, but let's see if you guys can be pretty loud too.
Go ahead. Okay, go for it. Huh? Tell them who you are.
Hi, my name's Zacharias. I was just wanting to ask, because I'm doing a report on the Fossa. What is the Fossa's top prey?
Great question, Zacharias. Great question, Zacharias. The top predator of the Fossa, well, there's not one in terms of a predator for the Fossa. It's the biggest, baddest thing in the forests of Madagascar. So the only thing that kills Fossa and tries to eat it or anything like that is people. So people are the real danger for Fossa in their survival. Now, in terms of what Fossa like, what they like being the predator for, one of the things we thought we knew about the Fossa when we started studying it was that Fossa must only eat lemurs, because the only people that ever encountered it were primatologists that were studying Fossa. Well, we've studied the Fossa's diet for more than 15 years now, and one of the things that we've learned is that Fossa eat almost everything they encounter in the forest. They don't eat every single thing, but there's nothing that they really won't eat in the forest in terms of the animals they encounter. And that's a really valuable thing for a top predator that's trying to keep a balance of everything in the ecosystems where it exists, to keep that even, is that it's not a specialist where it only eats one thing. Now, its favorite meal is lemurs, and its very favorite lemur to eat is a kind of lemur called a sportive lemur. Let me show you a picture of a sportive lemur. Right here. That's a sportive lemur. And that's Fossa's very favorite food in the places we study it. And one of the reasons for that is
Luke, sorry, we didn't get to see it. You just have to do a screen share again.
Thank you, Joe. I forgot to hit screen share.
That's okay.
All right, here we go. This is a sportive lemur. And this is what Fossa's very favorite food in the places we study it is, because it weighs about 2 or 3 pounds. So that's a big animal for the areas where we're studying. So there's a lot of energy for the Fossa. And if you can see in the picture on the left, it looks like it's in a tree hole. Well, this animal is nocturnal. It's only active at night. And during the day, it sleeps in these tree holes. And one of the things about Fossa is they can climb trees and run through trees like a squirrel. While this animal, the Fossa may weigh 30 pounds. It's incredibly good at running up and down and through trees. And so this animal, when it's in a tree hole like this during the day, is really easy to find and catch. And that's why Fossa like them the most. Zacharias, that was a great question, and I appreciate it. Who's got another one for me?
All right, let's go to Aurelia, Ontario. We've got grade 5 students with Mr. Underhill. Let me turn your microphone on.
My name's Olivia, and I was wondering if you could live anywhere else in the world, where would it be?
So, Olivia, I think the question was if I could work anywhere else in the world, where would it be? Is that right?
So yes.
Yes.
That's a great question. I've worked a lot in Africa and Madagascar. I've worked in some in Asia. I've been in India and in Indonesia on Sumatra. I even saw a clouded leopard and had a very close call with one when I was in Sumatra. But I think if there's one place I'd like to also work, it would be to spend more time in South America studying jaguars. I think jaguars are amazing animals, just as amazing as lions and leopards and cheetahs and tigers and snow leopards and clouded leopards too. But the thing I've spent the least amount of time working on is jaguars. I did my master's degree, so one of my graduate degrees, on the Florida panther. And puma, which is the same thing as a panther or a mountain lion, are really cool. But the thing I'd like to spend more time with is with jaguars in South America. That would be my next step of the thing I would want to start studying more next.
All right, great question. And we just so happened to talk to Steve Winter yesterday, who's just returned from some jaguar action.
I know, I'm so jealous. Every time we get together, and we get to spend quite a bit of time together in the field from year to year, and his stories are just amazing.
All right, let's see, who have we visited yet? Let's go to Copel, Texas, grade 4s with Mrs. Manupelli. Your microphone is on.
All right.
Oh, big group of grade 4s.
Yes, lots of them here. Amelia.
Isn't it dangerous to go so close to the big cats?
You know, that's a really good point. When you're studying big cats in Africa, like lions, it's really safer to stay in the vehicles where you are. And normally if you're in your vehicles, they don't see you as a person that's walking along and as a potential prey item that it could catch and eat, because it just sees the car as this big thing that it can't catch and it can't eat. And you noticed that when they were in that video darting one, they waited until it was completely asleep until they got out to work on it. And what happens is the folks that are working on the animal, there'll be a group of people that are checking it, making sure it's healthy, putting the radio collar on. But the vehicles will be around those people doing that. And if there are other lions in the area, for example, there are actually more people that are not looking at the lion that's been darted. They're actually looking at everything else that's all around them to make sure that none of the other lions come in and attack the people while they're working on the one. And then when they're done working with the one that is asleep, they give it a shot of some reversal drug, a medicine that wakes it up. And as soon as they do that, everybody jumps back in the cars and they watch and make sure it wakes up and everything's safe. But there have been some pretty close calls. There was one time I was in Zambia and working with a group there that was putting a new collar on a lioness. And I was on the other side of the lion from where the cars were, and then the rest of the pride was on the other side of the cars. And we were working as fast as we could, and they were attaching the radio collar, and I was taking pictures of the whole thing, and I was using a flash. And you know how a flash has this bright light. Well, that was giving some stimulation to the animal that was asleep. And so it woke up a little bit earlier than it should have. And so here we are working on the collar, and I'm sitting on the other side of the lion from the cars, and to my back is a big valley, so I can't run backwards either. And the lion looked up and it looked around, and everybody jumped on the cars, but there I am sitting there. And the lion luckily just fell back asleep, and as soon as it started to fall back asleep, I jumped up on the cars too. And then we didn't use the flash anymore while we were making sure that the lion was being collared safely. It's a good idea to stay in the vehicles if you want to be safer, and so that's what most folks do. It's not what everyone does. Sometimes when you have to walk around and track, you have to pay very close attention, and that's why you never go by yourself. Good question.
All right. Were you by any chance with Tandue? She shared a story.
I was.
She shared a story where one of her first times with a lion, it woke up early. So I'm guessing that might be it.
Yep.
Very cool. Our final live classroom is in Thunder Bay, Ontario. They're grade 6 students with Mrs. Miraki, and I will turn your microphone on.
Yep. No, moving. Yep. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Graydon, and I was wondering what sort of adaptations does the Fossa have to catch its prey?
Great question, Graydon. So a Fossa is an amazing animal because people first described it about 150 years ago, but they never agreed. Is it a cat? Is it a mongoose? Is it a dog? What is it? And what's happened now is that we've actually put all of the carnivores in Madagascar in their own family of carnivores, different from any other ones anywhere in the world. But the adaptations that Fossa have are just amazing. Their teeth are huge for their body size. They've got one of the largest sets of canines and molars for the overall size of the animal of any carnivore. They've got incredibly strong muscles. And what that does is it allows them to be able to grip the tree trunks. They've got really strong jaws, almost like a hyena, so that when they bite something, it's a real crushing blow. But then the coolest thing about Fossa is that they have these claws like a cat's, but their tail is actually as long as their body. So if a Fossa's body is about 2.5 feet long, its tail might be 3 feet long. And that tail is not prehensile like you see the South American primates that can grab things and hang, or like a possum that can grab and hang. It's not prehensile. They can't grab things with it. But if you've ever seen a tightrope walker walking like at the circus or one of these tightropes between two buildings, they have that big balance bar that they move back and forth to stay balanced in the trees. That great big tail that Fossa have, they throw it back and forth to maintain their balance. And so that's how an animal that may weigh 30 pounds can walk through branches that you would wonder whether or not a squirrel could walk on them or not and be so successful. They're really agile. And so all of those factors together make Fossa incredible predators. And that's why in all of Madagascar, there's just one species of the top predator, the Fossa, and it does a really good job at what it has to do. Great question. Thanks.
All right. So I mentioned we had the virtual school watching online in different locations. So I'm going to grab 2 quick questions that they've shared via YouTube. The first one is, how can students be involved in the Big Cats Initiative? And the second one is, what size of area do you work in Madagascar?
Those are both great questions. One way that students can stay involved in the Big Cats Initiative is to always check back on the causeanduproar.org webpage or natgeobigcats.org. And those are the BCI web pages, the Big Cats Initiative web pages. But also through National Geographic Education, there are actually some online toolkits that people can access, so you can have lesson plans and more videos and more information on what you can learn. And we'll make sure that you get those links out so that you can find all those great resources that you can learn more and you can continue to find out more and help support the Big Cats Initiative, not only by sharing the information with all your friends, but also finding out what's going on in the field and figure out ways that you can help support that direct work. Those are great questions. In Madagascar, we've worked all over the island. And the places where we work now are a few different national parks, but they cover more than 100 square miles in the one area where we've been working the longest. Madagascar itself is about the size of the state of California. And we've worked in about 13 national parks all over the island. And so we've got pretty good coverage all over the place in the places that we go and we do our work there.
All right. So Luke, how's your time? Do you have some time for a couple more questions?
Yeah, let's do 2 more questions.
All right. So classrooms, let me see hands nice and high, and that's how I'll know. Whoa, there we go. Let's go back to Mrs. Menopelli's group. I see lots of hands there.
All right. Matthew. Say it loud and clear.
Get over here because they can't see you. They can't see it.
How does it feel to be facing against these predators, and how does it feel to be, encounter one of them?
Well, good question. How does it feel when you encounter a predator? Well, of course, at first, sometimes it's a little bit scary. But you always have to not panic and stay in control and realize that you've got a safety plan. Before you do anything, you have to have a safety plan for everything you do so that you can make sure that you don't make any mistakes by trying to come up with a solution or a strategy at the last minute. But also, it's a great honor. It's a great responsibility because these animals are very, very special. And to be able to encounter them and help protect them is a privilege that we all hope that when we do this, we do the right thing. And that's why we always make sure we've got a good plan for what we're doing. But we also have a responsibility to make sure, because we've been lucky enough to be close to them, that we do everything in our power to keep them safe and help their populations not decline, but to expand so that we can have a world that has lions and tigers and leopards and cheetah and snow leopards and clouded leopards and jaguars and pumas and all kinds of stuff like that still in it. And if we know more about them, we can know more about how to protect them. And that responsibility becomes an honor in and of itself to be able to make sure that they stay safe. Thank you for that question.
Okay, and we'll take a final question. We'll go to Bloomingdale, Illinois for this one. I'm sure they have a good question, but someone's also wondering about your Twitter handle. Do you have a Twitter handle?
I do, Luke Dollar. So at Luke Dollar, and I'll actually be live tweeting Safari Live for Big Cat Week late tomorrow night. So
all right.
Mrs. Franger, pick somebody. How about we do Sean?
Sean, go all the way up there, bud. Make room so Sean can get through, guys.
Okay. Here, Sean. You say your name?
My name is Sean, and has a lion or big cat ever bit you before?
Good question, and luckily the answer to that is no, because I've got both hands and both feet, and I think if a big cat bit me and I still survived, I might be missing one. And that's why it's very important to always remember with whatever you do is safety first. Good question, and stay safe.
All right. Well, I know the boys and girls could probably go all day with big cat questions. So if you guys do have some more, why don't you send them to me later today? And Luke, if it's okay, I'll pass on some to you if they have some more questions.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, Luke, once again, thank you so much for sharing your work in Madagascar and making that point that it's not just the animals. It's if you can help the people, that's going to help the animals. So I think that's so important. You're doing some incredible work.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate the opportunity and all the great questions and all the work that you did to go into this as well, Joe. Congratulations to all of you.
All right. Well, let's turn the microphones on. Let's get the classrooms nice and loud. Goodbye and thank you for Luke. And we'll sign off for today. So here we go, boys and girls. Microphones coming on. Nice and loud.
Bye, everybody.
Great job, classrooms, as always. Luke, once again, thank you. And we're going to sign off for today.